It's a pleasure to see you.
Is the lighting okay in here?
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay.
My lighting, I don't know what's wrong with my lighting today, but for some reason it's dark and it's light. I couldn't fix it. So it is what it is. I'm the IT guy. I'm the everything guy. So that's all good. Let's see. I want to Licalzi or
Lit. It's
Lic
pretty easy. It
Licalzi
looks worse. It's Licalzi.
Licalzi Licalzi
Licalzi.
Licalzi. Oh, I
Licalzi.
love it. I love it. I love it. Love it. Tamar Licalzi. Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining Kiltz's Carnivore Conversations.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, pleasure. Well, always like to start out a little bit about yourself and where are you from and how did you get into this crazy carnivore space?
Well, my name's Tamar Licalzi, and I was born and raised here in Florida, and I live in Southwest Florida. That was recently just really demolished by Hurricane Ian back in September. Um, the whole carnivore thing came about 2 years ago when I had started when paleo wasn't working anymore, when keto paleo, when autoimmune keto paleo, and all these different things weren't, they were fixing me for a while, but they weren't fixing me permanently. And I still had major sugar addiction that was so bad that I could go a few weeks and then some sort of stressful event or something would happen, and I would just be driving by a Publix or a health food store, and I'm like, "Ooh, I need my paleo cake icing," because I would justify it because it's got healthier ingredients
Yeah.
than Duncan Hines or any of those companies or Publix's cake icing or whatever. I don't know if you've been to Florida, but Publix's birthday cake icing is the best. And when I was young, I could scrape it off of a cake and I would eat it. And I've never been really overweight in my life except for once, and that was not even really that bad. It was like 20 pounds bigger than I am now, and that was about 5 years ago. Uh, so even with all this sugar addiction issue, I never really allowed myself to get out of shape because I used to do fitness modeling. I was in magazines, I was in calendars, I competed in the bodybuilding world in the NPC. I was always natural, so I could never get as lean as other people. I could get pretty lean, but I'd have to kill myself doing 3 hours of cardio and weight training every day, twice a day, this and that, not 6 hours, but like an hour and a half in the morning and
Mhm.
another hour and a half at nighttime. Plus I was working in the restaurant business at the time. So that was kind of always killing me. And it was constantly a roller coaster of food deprivation, eating very minimal amounts of food, 1,400 calories a day, doing ungodly amounts of exercise. And it ended up killing my thyroid. So I had, obtained, acquired, I guess you could say, genetically, because my mom has it too, but Hashimoto's thyroiditis, celiac disease, I discovered that I had back in 2007 on my 30th birthday, which today is my 46th birthday. So 16 years ago, I discovered I was gluten intolerant.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm really aging anymore since I have switched over to this, but, so the celiac and then the Hashimoto's and rheumatoid arthritis, and I've had asthma since I was a little kid. That was like my main first autoimmune issue. And then they got a little I call them sub conditions. I know there's probably a technical term for them, but like I don't know how to say this properly. It's a weird word, but it's SJO GRENS, like Sjogren's syndrome or whatever. It's the dry.
Sjogren's.
Okay.
I can't pronounce it very well either. So you're okay.
That
Sjogren's.
one.
Yep.
Raynaud's. I have Raynaud's. So when it gets really cold outside, especially cold, my fingers and toes turn purple and I can't feel them for hours. So then that doesn't help with the autoimmune thyroid problems. So when I was living in Ocala for a few years, I lived in Ocala, which is just south of Gainesville, totally different topography and weather in the winter time, especially than this far south in Florida. So it get a lot colder. And as a personal trainer working outside, I was, always in so much pain. And I was living in awful mold there too. So the trees had the mold, and then my house had black mold. And after a different hurricane, Hurricane Irma, I had all these issues with the mold really got bad in 2017 when Irma came through and like wrecked the whole state. And by the beginning of 2018, it was so cold in Ocala one day. It snowed, and I'm like, Lord, I was born in Miami. I can't deal with this. Like, please take me back to Punta Gorda. I need to go back south. I need to go back to my main home, which I consider Punta Gorda my home because I've lived here 30 something years. But so he finally did back in September of 2018. I spent 4 years learning all kinds of stuff in Ocala, dealing with health issues, learning to embrace my own body in a state that I couldn't lose this 20 pounds to save my life, no matter how much I dieted and exercised. So it gave me a different appreciation for people that are overweight, because I know I'm not lazy, and I'm like looking at other people that have a hard time losing weight, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it took me when I moved back. Okay, so when I moved back down here, it took me about 6 months, and I got back to the body set that I don't mind keeping, and relatively lean, not crazy lean, lean enough, more muscular, and less inflammation. But it took forever, and it took a healthier environment to help me do that, mold free and so on and so forth. But it gave me an appreciation for people who have a hard time losing weight. And we always think, well, not everybody, but I always thought when I was a lot younger, especially, that they were just lazy and they just like to sit on their butt and eat all day long, and that's all they did, even if they worked and stuff, but had no drive to do anything else. And so that experience gave me a newer appreciation for other people. So back to myself, 2020, about the whole, situation that happened around the world.
The thing we won't speak about.
The thing we won't speak about. In the first couple of weeks, we all had a lot of time to sit home and do some research and stuff. And I started going down some rabbit holes that were super deep. And I already knew about the big, the industry that always is pushing certain types of things to fix certain types, any kind of health problems and stuff. And I'm like, I've never really liked it because it always made me sicker. So I really went down some rabbit holes. And then somehow I came across, I know how I came across it, because I've been following ancestral supplements for a long time. And Liver King, before he became Liver King,
right,
used to send me his supplements on him to help me, because they were too expensive and I couldn't afford it when I was living in Ocala. And so he would send them to me, and I'd make posts about it. And so the thyroid, the adrenal, the pancreas, he always sent those to me, and they really helped me, especially because I have thyroid problems. And so I started to believe in this company. So following his company and then following him, somehow it started me to follow Dr. Saladino. And because he became a suggestion, and this is when Dr. Saladino was still pretty much carnivore.
Right.
And so I started digging in on this, and I'm like, I started researching it. So that's how I kind of found out about it. And I thought it was kind of crazy. I'm like, there's no way people can just eat meat and fat. I'm like, I was all about meat, fat, and vegetables that were killing me. And I was like, this is kind of crazy. And then one day, Dr. Baker popped up on my Instagram, Dr. Sean Baker, and he was doing it and always posting stuff. And he's a deep thinker like I am. So, not following all the trends of the main world as far as like how you're supposed to eat and stuff. And I was like, okay, so maybe there's something to this. So by the end of 2020, I was getting sick again, and I never got the other problem that we're not going to speak of. I never got it. I was taking other remedies to help keep me from getting it. And then in March of 2021, so 2 years ago, I decided to try just doing the all meat. And it was good, but I would go about 3 weeks, and then I would like Jones for like a kombucha tea or some fruit, and I would fall off the wagon. I eat some arugula because I love certain types of vegetables. I actually like them. They just don't like me. I kind of miss eating them, but I don't miss any of the repercussions from eating them, like the bloating, the excessive bloating and stuff. So I would cycle it, and I would go 3 or 4 weeks, and I'd do it again. And then I would eat the vegetables again, and some fruit, and even some cake icing, and or some, what is that stuff called? Cassava flour chips. Because I was a true carbohydrate addict, like crack, like is to somebody, or whatever other drugs people use. like I could only go a few weeks without having to go do that again to ease some sort of thing. And I've always been in shape and I've always been an athlete and I've always worked out and stuff like that. But it was like something with age and the body just not recuperating as fast. And then boom, you do it again 3 weeks later. I don't think the body has enough time to recuperate in that amount of time. And you feel like you might have, and then boom, you set off like this little fire inside and it, starts all over again. And it was getting worse. So 2021, I started that. And then by the end of 2021, I was doing pretty good. I was dating somebody. He was a doctor and he didn't really get it. He was all for the keto life, but his keto was like processed foods and,
Right.
a lot of deli meat and stuff like that. And he understood my celiac, which was good because he knew that we couldn't go out to restaurants and just eat anything. And he didn't make fun of me or, had any issues with that, thank God. So, then we ended up breaking up, which was fine. And we're still friends. And then March of 2022 happened and I started to get bloated and puffy. So I went animal based because I follow a few of you different doctors on here. I followed you for probably close to a year now. I follow Dr. Chafee. I follow Dr. Baker. I still follow Dr. Saladino. And so, you get all this information at you and you're like, oh my goodness, maybe I should do the animal based because I do love cheese. Well, cheese is just like me, to me, is still like crack, like sugar is.
Yes.
I'm like, I'd eat copious amounts of cheese and I was gaining weight again. And I'm like, but there's no sugar in this. And, I'm getting all bent out of shape and copious amounts of butter. So make a long story short, July happens. I went to Key West for 5 days to go spend time with some of my friends who vacation down there for a month a year. And I spent like a week down there and I ended up coming home and getting, I think maybe possibly the thing that we won't talk about, but it was very mild. It was like, a head cold, a little sniffly, like, but I was exhausted. And after the recuperation from that took like 4 or 5 days, I was like, okay, that does it. I'm going back to just eating meat and maybe some cheese here and there. And I ate some ground beef, which was not grass fed. And I put some cheese on it, which was grass fed. And I blew up and looked like I was pregnant. I had a reaction that made me look like my stomach distended out past my hips and on the sides and on the front and back behind me. My legs swelled up. It was almost like what would happen to me if I got gluten in my body, because that's one of the main symptoms that happens to me is excessive distension and bloating and water retention throughout my whole body. And I couldn't breathe. Of course, that freaks me out because of the asthma. So when you can't breathe and your lungs are like all compressed with all this intestinal distension, you're like, I had to lay down. I couldn't work. It was awful. So I fasted for a few days and I was like following you guys a lot. And I'm like, that does it. I'm just going straight meat, nothing else. Well, I did that for about 3 weeks. Then I fell off the wagon and I had like a little kombucha, but I would buy a kombucha tea and only drink like a third of it and then dump the rest of it out. And I kind of weaned myself off. And then right before the hurricane in September, we of course had to buy a whole bunch of stuff and I bought some starvation food, which I called like the plantain chips and stuff, just for God forbid I didn't have enough propane to make my meat and all this other stuff. So I ate. After the hurricane, it was really bad. We lost electricity for like 9 days. And I did eat 2 bags of the plantain chips. So I really broke. So I went back to animal based during the hurricane, broke up with with all of that, blew up again, not as bad as I did that one time. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore with the carbs. So 24 weeks ago today, which was the hurricane right after, or the Sunday right after the hurricane, was the last time I ate any carbs. Actually, it was the day before that. So Sunday was the day 1. So today is officially 24 weeks.
Wow.
0 carb, 0 sugar. The only thing that I do that's naughty, I had cheese on Thanksgiving one time, just a little bit. Sometimes I do some grass-fed butter, and I do drink coffee because coffee actually makes me feel good. Like I actually feel a little bit better with coffee with my joints and stuff. So I know that's not carnivore. So I'm like 99.9% like lion diet carnivore.
That's okay.
I,
That's okay.
that
I've
is my,
been off coffee now for like 8, 9 months, and although I do like it, I had a little bit a couple weeks ago, just a small amount of decaf, and it didn't kill me. I'm okay.
yeah. See, I feel like it actually helps me.
Mhm.
It's like it puts a flame out in my joints. And I did some research years ago. It was something about being TH1 dominant or TH2 dominant with some autoimmune flare-ups. And I
Right,
and I'm
right.
the one where coffee actually kind of helps. So I'm not the person that can have echinacea, that will actually set off autoimmune reactions in me, but the coffee supposedly dampens it down. So I've always justified it. One day I'm gonna try to get rid of the coffee as well. Um, but I drink like black most of the time,
Yeah,
and or
yeah,
sometimes put some tallow in it. I'll put
yeah.
tallow in it, or kind of do like Dr. Berry. I like Dr. Berry too. He puts like mineral drops in it, and I do that too, and some sea salt, and some
That's
tallow,
good.
which
That's good.
sounds
And
kind of disgusting.
although my last conversation with Ken, Dr. Barry, is that he may be weaning off coffee. Although, I think, we drive cars, we do many things in life that are dangerous and aren't perfect. This isn't meant to be strict, strict, strict. Boy, if you ever go off of this, you're nuts. Because I think that there's some flexibility in how we choose. Although when you go on the plantains, how does it make you feel?
Crappy. Like I
And
get bloated, or you can see it in my face, and
so alert allergies are very common, probably along with just the reactions happen in our gut, which is fermentation makes us feel lousy. So the mainstay of your physical problems, Raynaud's, Sjogren's, bloating, skin issues, would that be the top?
the digestive issues, I think, were the tippy top, because it got to the point where I couldn't eat anything without looking like I was like 6 or 7 months pregnant. And it would just like it did before I figured out I had celiac disease back in 2000, and at the end of 2006, well, right before my birthday, my 30th birthday. I was 29 going on 30, and I couldn't figure it out. I mean, I had a calendar. I looked like a 90-year-old person going to a doctor, like different doctors and different specialists, for like a year before I figured out through research. And I researched it, and I went to a gastro, and he insisted. He said, you don't have celiac disease. He said, you don't fit the description. And I'm like, well, what's the description? He said, you're not Irish. I said, well, yeah, I'm not Irish. I'm Italian. I said, but I have health insurance. I'd like to be tested for it. And he said, okay. So he reluctantly wrote me a script. I went and had blood work done to look at, I believe it was the IgE antibodies. And I had not eaten it in a week. I had only, at this point, I went on a natural paleo diet, didn't even know it had a name. I just ate meat, eggs, vegetables, and fruit. And that was it, because everything set me off and then that whole week I had done that. And even when I went and got my blood work done, when it went back to the gastro enterologist, he called me on the phone, and he said, I was married at the time. He said, well, Mrs. Cole, you're a lot smarter than I give you credit for. He said, your antibodies were super high. He said, so you look like you have the marker for celiac disease. He said, so we need to schedule you for an endoscopy. And I said, well, thank you, Dr. So-and-so. I said, just because I happen to be a model and a waitress at a restaurant at that time doesn't mean I'm not highly intelligent and don't know my own body. I said, so how accurate's the blood? I said, how dangerous is the endoscopy? He said, well, we have to take 8 to 9 biopsies of your small intestines. He said that can be dangerous. He said there is a chance of intestinal bleeding and, whatever. And I said, oh, okay. I said, how accurate is that? He said, 99%. I said, how accurate is the blood work? He said, about 95. I said, I think I'm good with the 95. Peace out. I felt kind of like I was being disrespected, I was kind of disrespectful to him, but why should I have to go under the knife, but technically, to see how bad my intestines are when my blood work's already screaming, hello, you're
and and
allergic to this.
and your body's been screaming forever. It brings it to the point a little bit about science and medicine. And what is our biggest problem in science and medicine, do you think?
What's our biggest problem in science and
Yeah,
medicine?
yeah. Gee, what is our modern world? We mentioned the thing we won't talk about, the infectious diseases that are going around in the world. But between the infectious diseases and the inflammatory conditions we're experiencing through our dietary advice, and then in some ways the doctors that are, we don't believe people, right?
They
Well,
don't listen to the patients.
don't listen to the patients.
Yeah, they
Although
don't listen.
there's so much information for everyone today right online, because you were mentioning you were learning much from just social media.
Social media. I go to PubChem, PubMed. My doctor in Ocala, who's also an OBGYN by trade, he's a functional medicine doctor as well. And he started doing that years and years ago. He's in his 80s now and he still practices medicine. He's so cute. But he is the one that really alerted me to my whole thyroid issue, because I was on Food Network back in 2011 and I had gone up to Ocala to go see my mom and went to the doctor with her. That's how I met him. He looked at me. He said, "You have Hashimoto's just like your mother." I said, "What? I don't have a thyroid problem." He's like, "Yes, you do." So we ended up running the blood work and stuff. And he tested things on my thyroid that most regular doctors aren't going to test either, like the reverse T3 and, the whole panel of the thyroid, not just the TSH level, and, different things that a lot of doctors only look at one marker and then they're averaging you with every single person that gets lab work done at that particular lab. And most people, especially most Americans, are sick and fat and unhealthy anyway. So their levels, the average of those levels are going to be even lower. So you're not in the true functional ranges. And he was concerned about mine because my markers were really bad, even worse than my mom's on some things. And so we had other blood work done and stuff too to make sure I didn't have cancer or whatever. And that came back fine, thank God. And then he introduced me to start really looking at my diet. He told me to look at the paleo diet. This was like in 2011, so about 12 years ago.
Wow.
And then that worked for a while. And then I found Dr. Perlmutter, who did the grain brain diet, and that went more keto. And so I kind of adopted that as keto paleo and stayed with just, I didn't do anything processed, like no deli meats or any of those keto bars or, any of that stuff. But it wasn't super popular back then. But now the food industry has really cheapened that up. And now you can go to Publix and find a keto bar that's got full of poison in it, like soy and all this kind of nonsense.
So you've been focusing on health and wellness of the body for years. And yet, despite that, you were feeling damaged. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I started really focusing on, oh, sorry, I forgot to
That's
turn the
okay.
volume off my phone. Since 2007, when I really started to feel bad, like in my late 20s, right before my 30th birthday, I really started doing a lot of research. And I went online and would research the hardcore stuff too, because I like science. I had a scholarship to go to the University of Miami to go into their pre-med program. So I actually always wanted to be a doctor, and I love science and I love the human body. So I'll dig deeper than just, the layman's term stuff that a lot of people have to use to understand it. I like the cellular part of it. I like methylation. I love the whole principle of methylation and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I've been digging for a long time, but I could never really figure it out. And in 24 weeks from today backwards, being zero carb, zero sugar, no cheating other than drinking my coffee and sometimes having some butter and once having cheese. But the 99% pure grass-fed beef, grain-fed doesn't do me very well if I do it too often. But staying grass-fed beef every single day has made a huge improvement on so many things. And I know I'm not even done being healed yet. So, you know what I'm saying? Like I had to go on antibiotics back in the end of January because I had to have a cyst removed off my back. And that kind of sent me back again. So when I had my ovulation and my lady time, I broke out like all over my chin and on my neck, where I was always breaking out hormonally before I started doing this. Like the last few months, other than this past month, it was great. Like it all went away, like the skin issues and stuff. So then it came back, but I'm hoping that this coming cycle, my body will be more healed because I'm not on the antibiotics. It was only a week.
When did you start sharing your knowledge and expertise on social media and helping others?
I think I really started it back in the MySpace days, even, and you could make the funny MySpace page, and it looked all, when I really found out I had celiac, and then the early beginning parts of the Facebook days, I started doing that. Of course, even on the Food Network, when I was on the Food Network show, that was called Restaurant Impossible back in 2011. I even talked about it during then because I had so many food allergies. I couldn't just taste what they were making to see if it was okay to serve to my customers. And I had to explain to them, listen, I can't. I have autoimmune issues and food allergies, and I can't do this. So always on social media. I think I've been on Instagram since 2012 or maybe 13, 12, I think 2012. So I've always preached a healthier way of eating and living. And yes, mine has evolved over the past 10, 11 years from being paleo to keto, paleo, so on and so forth, to now carnivore. And I don't know if people think I'm crazy, but they probably do think I'm crazy. I am kind of crazy anyway, but at least I'm spreading the message and telling them my experiences.
Although falling in line with the masses is normal, and falling out of line with the lions is crazy. So
Right.
where would you rather be, with the lions or the
Oh, I
mass?
definitely, and if you catch my drift, I'm definitely not with the masses on anything.
Yes. Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying. So I'd much rather be the lion and run solo, or the lone wolf, or whatever animal that's a carnivore that you want to,
Which we highly admire, the lone wolf or the mighty lion, which is kind of interesting how we all sort of move towards the sheep, yet we are the lions. Tell us a little bit about your mindset and how you focus on the mental side of things or the spiritual side of things, and whether you use those things in your life.
Okay, so I am a believer in and follower of Jesus Christ. I believe in the Bible and everything that the Word of God says. I am not religious, so to speak, so I don't align with any particular Protestant religion or whatever. I believe in the inerrant Word of God, and that's what I follow, and that's what I listen to. I listen to non-denominational ministers that are expositors. So they preach the Bible verse by verse. They take you through the history of from the Bible from thousands of years ago. They explain the Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic terminology, so we understand the Bible from a from what it meant and what it meant back then, because things can get lost through translation, and it's easier to switch things and turn them over to what we want them to be instead of what it actually really meant, because language changes and evolves. So that is always my first, that is my first and foremost, my um where I go. I read it in the morning. I usually read it at nighttime. I'll read it in between clients. I listen to a lot of sermons. When I'm training and working out, I don't really listen to music and stuff anymore. Um, but so that's how I believe spiritually. And that's where I really find my grounding from, is from praying to the Lord. And, I mean, he's been there for me so many times. I can't begin to tell you, like, how many how many stupid things I've done, and I've paid consequences for them and stuff, but I needed them in order to get a better, um deeper love and appreciation for the Lord, and follow him even more, because I could have gone down some paths that were really bad when I was, younger and stuff. And, there's been times I've been had through financial hardships and stuff, and I always trusted in God, and he always brought me through and brought people into my life that believed in me as far as what I do as a personal trainer, and all this other stuff. And even at my lowest points, when in the last, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years, on the low end, when if I'm financially struggling, because personal training is a luxury job. Let's face it, people will cut me out before they cut their hair girl out, their nail girl out, their alcohol out, their party and whatever. they'll cut me out before they do that when times get tough. Most people will. God's blessed me with really good clients that are very loyal to me now, and only cut me out if they go on vacation, but then they come back and they come right back to it.
And they need you more and more because
and they need me more. That's they need me more. And I kind of lost my train of thought there, but so being spiritual and always praying to the Lord and staying focused on him and on heavenly things too, not just the things of this world, keeps me a lot more grounded. And I like it also allows me to be in a better mood. And I attribute a lot of that to the way I'm eating, because I believe God made us a certain way, and that we're, after the fall of Adam and Eve and after the sin, we ended up we were originally herbivores before the fall, and we all got along with the animals. And then after the fall, we became omnivores. We became the hierarchy, and basically, we had to kill the animals. If they killed us, we had to kill them. That's even in the Bible, like if they killed a human, you were supposed to take its life. So that's another story for another day. And I know some people aren't going to agree with me, and that's fine too. But it's how I believe, and it's what I truly believe, that it's legit and real. So I believe that God changed us, because he can do anything genetically, that we needed to be meat eaters after the fall. And so we need to eat meat, and meat has been something that's always been provided to us. We can always hunt for it, even if it's not readily accessible. Vegetables back in the Bible days weren't growing 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They didn't import them from other parts of the world.
Right.
They got fruit and vegetables when they grew in that season, and they would eat it then. And then they would have to hunt and everything else for meat, and they did sacrifices and everything else in the Old Testament, and then even in the New Testament, and even in the Bible, it says that we shouldn't, that God gave us stuff, and we shouldn't be, I can't remember the exact verse, shame on me, but I know it's in there, that what God gave us is meant to be food. And I think that some people can probably eat vegetables and stuff, and not have problems if they don't have autoimmune, as long as they're not doing it too much. But the stuff that God gave us back then is totally different than it is now as well. It's been genetically modified so much. It's not the same. The fruits got way much more, excessive amounts of sugar. The vegetables are so GMO, corn, soy. That's not even a vegetable. Those are grains, but grains and legumes. But the vegetables too, like broccoli, isn't something that was around in the Bible days. That's a hybrid of other things. So when the Bible speaks of that type of stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean we should still be eating it today, because it's not what God gave us back then. So the diet lets me sleep better. I wake up in a much better mood most of the time, and spiritually, I'm happier. I can focus better. So I can focus on the word too, because I'm always, back in the day when I was constantly foggy brained with the sugar and stuff, I barely opened the Bible. I just stay on social media all day, scrolling, moody, complaining, grumpy, complaining to my mom, being mean to her, and the poor woman, she doesn't deserve it, just for no reason. I get grumpy for no reason, and boom, like switch like this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where does this attitude even come from? And it was just a lot of inflammation and stuff. And so this way I can stay better.
the drugs that the plants bring to us fog our mind up and don't allow us to think straight. And, I focus on faith, fertile fatty foods, and fitness. And so that the diet, the nutrition that we're meant to eat helps us be more of the humans we're meant to be. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I like that. Faith, fatty
fertile
food.
foods, fatty fertile foods, which is me, animal
Fatty
based.
fertile food.
Yes.
Fertile, because you're a fertility doctor, and the fatty meats help people optimize their hormones, so their sex hormones are properly, and they can actually reproduce. And the sex hormones are optimal.
in our fertile life, whether it's for reproduction, making babies, or building a career, or whatever you're doing in life, there's natural to our fertility, which is creativity in our lives. Can you speak a little bit about your training as a personal trainer? What got you into that space, and tell us a little bit about how it inspires you to help others.
Okay, so I started personal training people back in 2011, 12, when my food allergies got so bad. My ex had a restaurant, the one that we were on the Food Network and everything. But being around gluten in the air would give me even issues. My throat would tighten up and this and that and everything else. So I've been an athlete. I've worked out since I was 12 years old with weights. I've always pumped iron. I was homeschooled in the beginning, so I'd go to the gym with my mom when I was a kid. I always liked working out. I did it throughout high school. I was a swimmer in high school. Then I started competing and stuff like that. And then my health issues kind of got to the point where my thyroid wouldn't allow me to lean out, etc., for getting on stage in the bikini and figure division of the bodybuilding world. So that kind of came just a hopeless goal that I could do it again one day, but it's it's too superficial for me now where I am. So I don't want to do it anymore. And I think it's too detrimental to the body. So because the restaurant business started to get a little bit volatile, I couldn't be in there without wearing a mask. This was when masks were unacceptable, because if you had one, then you were like,
something was weird.
you had something that, no, God forbid, some awful communicable disease. I was just wearing an N95 that would keep the particles of flour from getting into my digestive system and even in my lungs, because I would get vertigo and everything just breathing it in. So, or not vertigo, like an ataxia type thing, like a room would start spinning and crazy stuff. So maybe that's vertigo.
Dizzy, it is.
Yeah, super dizzy. And as long as I would get away from it, it would go away in about 20 minutes. Throat would close up. I started getting, I would get like little, almost like little pustule type things on my skin and hive-like things from breathing it. So I had to exit away from that business and start something else. And I'm like, well, what can I do where I can make a decent amount of money per hour, where I know I'm good at what I'm doing and I can just help other people feel better. And I was like, okay, personal training. Because people always would ask me, oh, can I work out with you? No, working out for me is second to reading the Bible. Like, I need to do that by myself. I don't like to do it with other people. It drains me. I get more energetic by myself. So like, I don't mind people being in the gym, but I don't want a partner. I don't need a workout partner to push me. I'll push myself to the point of hurting myself, like not joints, but like just muscles. Like, oh, I'm so dead, I can barely walk out of the gym. So I was like, okay, personal training. So I started that in 2012. I still have some of these clients, whether they hire me just to help them with their food. Some of these people are the ones that come to me. They're like, oh, you're doing carnivore now? Can you help me with that? Can you encourage me with that? Whatever. I'm like, yes, of course. So it's always about helping people. It lends me to making a decent amount of money per hour without having to be somewhere, because I do it on my own. I don't use a facility. I use basically free spaces, so I could keep rates a little bit more affordable than going to a gym. Plus, if I use the gym, I'll never go to the gym, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't want to work where I have my enjoyment.
Right.
It just doesn't do anything for me. I'd never step foot in that gym again. And in a small town like this, there's only one really good gym, and that's not the one that I want to work in. So I'll go to super small little boutique type gyms and take my older clients there. I have clients in their 70s and 80s. Some of my middle-aged ones, they like to go there sometimes, but I have so much workout equipment in my truck that it's like a traveling gym, and I'm very creative. So I can do just about anything with that truck and the stuff that I have in there that I can do in a gym. So nobody really needs a gym. They like it because it's semi-private. Nobody's like staring at them doing exercises. I have male clients that I'm like, okay, now this is kind of a girly exercise. And they're like, it's okay. I'm like, don't worry. If we were in the gym, I'd never make you do this in front of other dudes, but you're going to do it right now. And because it's really effective. And they're like, man, those girly exercises are harder than the guy exercises, or the guy exercises. And I'm like, yeah, they can be brutal. And so all my different clients are so funny, because I just love helping people. And I have husband and wives. They don't always train together. They train separately, but the wife will get the husband to start training with me, and then they like it, and then they tell their friends. And I have doctors, I have firefighters, I have injectors, people that do like the Botox and stuff. I have stay-at-home moms that are soccer moms. I have older people that are retired. I have young athletes. One of my athletes, the youngest, is a world-class judo athlete, and he's was number one in his weight class as of last year. So, I have a whole wide variety of different types of people, which keeps me from getting bored. And I just like helping them and encouraging them because I'm more of a positive person and I like to build people up. I call myself a people builder, not just for the muscles, but for the spiritual side and making them feel good about themselves and always not browbeating them. Oh, you stink. You need to do 15 more push-ups. That was horrible. I always try to make people feel good about themselves.
Which is
So
a critical part of, in general, our environment doesn't support that, does it?
no, a lot of people get beaten down and from their jobs or whatever it is, and it's somebody needs to always see the good in somebody doing something and encouraging them to keep going. And even if they're my clients, some of them, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but everybody's different. Some people like to drink a little bit more. So with all this working out, they know, why am I going to drink if I'm going to be spending all this money training? It's kind of pointless. So they've really tapered down on the alcohol, or they've switched their diet to be more carnivore, not 100%, but they're like, I see it working for you. Like, you're still very muscular and still very in good shape. You're not fat, you're not skinny, well, maybe that would work for me too, because I do like meat, and I'm like, but you got to understand, it takes a good 6 to 8 weeks to lose the craving for sugar. And that includes alcohol,
Yeah.
alcohol converts into sugar. So then people, after about 3 weeks, that's when people that drink, a couple drinks a week or more, kind of end up going back to it. And it's like, it's no different than me with the cake icing. So, so I just like to encourage people and that kind of stuff.
Resistance work versus cardio work. Do you have any opinions on that?
Resistance all day, every day.
All day,
I
every day.
I would do Well, I always tell people you can make resistance training cardiovascular I can tell when I'm in the fat burning zone. And I know Apple Watches aren't fail proof and they're not 100% accurate, but it gives you a decent guide with your heart rate, because I do believe it's relatively accurate, at least with my heart rate, that it does sense my heart rate. So lifting weights can become cardiovascular if it's done properly.
Mhm.
And I try to keep, personally for myself, I like to keep my rep ranges between 8 to 12. I'll do more sets, less time in between the sets. So like less rest time. So after I'm done with a full set, I might wait no more than 30 seconds and do it again and do more sets. So I'll still end up getting the same amount of reps if I did 15 to 20 reps or whatever, with less total sets. But I like shortened time and heavier weight, because heavier weight's more challenging, and heavier weight, I believe, is better for helping to build muscle. I don't mean so heavy that it's taxing out the joints, but heavy enough that 8 to 10 after the fourth or fifth set, you're like, oh my goodness, this is getting tough, and you're sweating bullets and your heart rate's up. I mean, I can get my heart rate to 170 beats per minute working out, just lifting weights. So why do I need to go running to do the same thing and pound, pound, pound on my joints all the time?
I hurt my knees and my hips running years ago, and I did a little bit of run walking the last couple of weeks, and I'm like done. And I just stick to my weights, and that's the very best way. I found it keeps me feeling the best, and I think that's our focus: resistance work.
Right. Yes, sir. Me too. And I do the run walk as well. I just bought some Hokas. They're super thick because I'm still very stubborn in my brain. And I'm like, okay, Tamar, the only way to really get lean and lose those hips, because I'm very curvy. I got a small waist, but I got a lot more mass on my legs and the glutes and everything. And I'm like, I look at myself, and I've never liked it since I was a kid, but I have to learn. I'm trying to learn to embrace it, because women are curvier down here and I'm trying. And so I'm not killing myself running every single day, because if I do run every single day, I can get pretty small. I get down to about 145 pounds and pretty lean. But then I look gaunt in the face and it makes me look older. And, and I don't do anything to please other people, but other people will be like, oh, Tamar, you're getting a little too skinny. Or I like you better with a little bit of meat on your bones. And I'm like, why is your opinion mattering to me? It really shouldn't. But then when I get thick, then they're like, oh, girl, you're so thick, and you hear these terms and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm thick. I don't want to be thick. So it's a constant play. And even I have my own battles in my own head with how I look, but I do still the run walk. These shoes are actually halfway decent. I don't have any true injuries in my knees and my hips. So I kind of justify it for now, but I don't do it every day like I was. It's kind of 2 to 3 times a week, every couple of days. And then but I still lift like 5 or 6 days a week. I'm going to go to the gym after we're done and I'm going to go lift, because I never skip leg day on my birthday. So it's leg day. And then I might go for, and we've had red tide down here, which is awful in the air. So I can't breathe anyway going outside. So I'm like, I'm pretty much probably not going to go running today or run walking or whatever, because I can't breathe. But, anyway, I definitely agree with weight training and resistance training. If you had to choose one over cardio any day.
How do we learn to love who we are?
That's a hard one.
But that seems to be the biggest trick of all of us, because whether you're short, tall, heavy, light, whatever it is, isn't that sort of the premise of the faith part of it, right? To love what is. And as you love what is, you begin to do the work of where you want to go and build that.
Right, because that's true. And it's when I have to really take a step back and be like, you know what, I need to be grateful for what God gave me. He made me the way that he made me. I'm going to see something on somebody else that I wish I had, because I'm tall too. I'm almost 5'10". So, that's always been an issue too. Oh, she's the tall girl. I've been told I look like a guy, and, nowadays, I guess that's not necessarily, it's a thing now, I mean, we don't have to go there, but now we have this other thing, with all this other stuff that we're seeing. And I'm like, well, I don't want anybody to think that I was actually born a guy, because it's so popular now to have people changing themselves that drastically. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so muscular. So it's like, that's okay, Tamar. God made you muscular. You're Italian. You have those genetics. You like to lift the weights. If you want to just starve yourself and go back to your old ways of eating and be bloated and unhappy all the time, and maybe just waste away and do all kinds of running and stop lifting your weights and maybe get skinnier, but what? At the expense of what? Feeling horrible all the time. And, it's about gratitude, being grateful for what the Lord gave me in all things, including my physique and the way I look. Even the aging process, I'm trying to grow old gracefully, not, doing hardly, any crazy stuff to myself or whatever. And God love it, whatever other people want to do, that's fine. I don't judge other people on if they want to have surgery and this and that and everything else. But, we just have to accept ourselves. And I think we have so much. I think social media is very huge to blame, and it doesn't just affect the kids and the teenagers and the young 20-year-olds. I think it even affects people in their 30s and 40s, maybe 50s and 60s, even seeing. I look at some of these people that I follow, people on social media that are working out that are in their 60s, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like they look better than me. And they're like 15, 20 years older than me. Like, how is this, like, body wise even possible? And then your brain gets a little like judgmental sometimes. Well, they're probably taking something, and maybe they're not. Maybe that's just their genetics.
I turn 67 next Sunday.
Yeah, you're a week away from me.
Yeah, younger and younger every single day, and health is first in the mind, and then I think the motion of the body. But what we eat is such a big, huge contributor. I mean, that's the thing that I've learned over my 12 years of carnivore and 20 years of keto, carnivore, and paleo, which has changed my life and make me just imagine more and more gratitude. And I would say that faith in God was the thing that really took it to the next level. I think that we all have to have faith in God and see God within all of us. That's our biggest challenge, is to see God in ourselves and then see God in every other human being and everything that.
Well, we're commanded to love one another,
Yeah, we
and
are.
we should love one another, including ourselves. We don't have to love some of the things that we've done in our past that were necessarily not good, or that, we should learn from the things in our past, whether even if it's stuff with our own eating addictions and stuff, like that's the past, learn from it, love and accept yourself and move forward from that. And then love your neighbor as thyself, and just embrace people where they are, and try to help them,
Yeah.
and encourage them and stuff. And I like to encourage people. And, I have a lot of clients that refuse to do carnivore and they think I'm crazy, and that's fine. They still love me for the personal training.
So
And
it's not critical to do carnivore, but what do you tell people who are like, well, oh gee, I just don't know if they could do that, or it's too hard, or how do you inspire them?
I try to tell them that carnivore is not a fad either. It's especially the extreme carnivore, where I'm more on the lion diet, because I can't eat eggs. They still inflame me. The
Yeah.
cheese bothers me if I eat it more than one day in a row, which that was before the hurricane. I look like, you can tell when I eat dairy because my face gets all puffy right down here. Um, some people, I'm like, you don't have, like, people think I'm crazy because all that I eat is meat. And I'm like, well, you can do different versions of carnivore where you eat some cheese and you can eat some quality eggs and beef, grass-fed beef, or other ruminant animals. You don't have to do it as extreme as me. And then maybe if you're feeling frisky and you want a vegetable, go eat a vegetable, you know, or maybe they don't have sugar addiction. Like,
Yeah.
some people don't have sugar addiction and can eat one piece of fruit, like a peach, and it doesn't trigger something in them like it does in me, to then eat more peaches the next day, and then more peaches the day after, and then peaches and cherries, and then you're off the wagon, totally eating cake icing again. You know what I'm saying? That's what happens to me with the fruit. So, I think some people can do slightly less extreme if they don't have horrible health issues. But when you have 8 or 9 autoimmune issues and other issues along with it, it's not going to just go away. And I think sometimes extreme, like for me, is more essential, and other people can be a little bit more moderate and experiment.
In experimentation, it's really what each individual needs to do here, right? Because we're sharing ideas that you may or may not find right, but until you be the experiment, you'll never know. Because the problem with science is there are a lot of opinions, and sometimes I say data is doo doo, and science could be snake oil,
Mm.
and we're really looking for something that works for me. And the one thing I found is carnivore works for everyone, but we're biased, right? We have these biases in life that we've been taught for hundreds, thousands of years of what it should be and what's the right thing.
Right. Well, we are, and I think carnivore does work for everybody too. There's way too many success stories. People just kind of have to get to the end of their own
Rope.
selves, their
Yeah.
own rope, and their
Yeah.
own cycle of whatever it is that's destructive to them, in order to kind of take another step. And, I was finally at the end of my own rope 24 weeks ago, even though
Okay.
this has been a process for 2 years this month. But it took, 24 weeks is exactly 6 true months now. So, it's been 6 months. So in 2 years, 18 of those months was kind of a lot of experimentation until I got to the end of my rope. And now I am kind of scared to go off of and eat anything other than, I will have a regular grain fed steak every once in a while. I'm probably going to eat one today because it's my birthday, and I feel like they do taste better and they have more fat on them, and I like fat. But I can't do it all the time. I still get inflammation from the grain fed ribeyes if I eat them every day. But it's just getting to the end of yourself, and finding what works for
For you.
you, and
Yeah.
and And sometimes I really feel like people should go extreme and then reintroduce like on that every third day after 72 full hours, because some things can take up to 72 hours to manifest in the body of any kind of allergy, a headache, or whatever it might be. And then if they want to reintroduce a different type of meat, like maybe chicken or something, which I don't eat, but they could, and maybe it works for them,
Right.
if they just could do all beef only for, uh, I don't know, maybe 6 months might be enough for people that don't have any diagnosed autoimmune diseases. I think us autoimmune people, I do admire Michaela Peterson a lot because she kind of reminds me of me, very much, very volatile with her health issues, always up and down, like the mold situation she recently experienced. I understand that because in Florida, there's a lot of mold here in Florida.
Everywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, the bacteria, yeast, viruses are in plants, I'd say, are the four predators of humans, and we're the prey. And so, if you eliminate the plants, you reduce the sugar and inflammation that feeds the microbes, and so now you just have the viruses left. Which essentially, if you minimize your inflammation, the viruses can't get into you. Your Teflon shield is capable of keeping them out. So then you're only going to minimize a reaction or no reaction.
right.
So I think that's why carnivore and fasting and one meal a day and fatty meat. Do you focus on fat versus protein? Do you think about that much? Tell us how you approach this and recommend it to your clients.
When I am doing a lot of protein and not getting the extra fat, I feel a little sluggish and tired. So I buy tallow on the side, and I will sometimes just take a scoop out. I get it from Carnivore Crisps. I like their tallow. It's actually really good. Um, and I bought like 15 jars of it the other day because I didn't want to run out of it. But I'll scoop a spoon in there and take like a big tablespoon if I'm feeling kind of hungry. This is another thing with me, and I know a lot of people really espouse the one meal a day, and I wish I could do it. I don't know if it's because I put 20,000 plus steps a day on my body
Hmm.
every single day, at least 6 days a week, constantly taking workout equipment out of my truck, setting it up, helping the people work out, doing my own workout. And I train for at least 2 hours a day every day. And then putting the stuff back in and then setting it back up. And it's like 80, it's March and it's like 80 something degrees down here. I mean, it's hot. We've had a very hot summer. I mean, a very hot winter, other than Christmas Day, and which was in the 30s during the day. It was insane. But it's I think I expend a little bit more energy than most people, and one meal a day doesn't cut the mustard because I know when I'm starting to get agitated because I'll snap. I will get snappy with people. I don't know if it's because my body's not completely healed yet. And maybe I actually had insulin issues and stuff like that. And maybe the beginning stages of metabolic issues that I didn't really
Mhm.
realize that I had because I've been so keto for so long, but still was addicted to sugar, but could go 3 or 4 weeks without it. But I don't know if maybe I really had screwed up my body to the point where I'm still in the healing process and I'm not completely healed up yet. So I tend to eat and I tend to need to eat more than one meal a day. So I have one main meal, which is usually around 3 o'clock. I have I'll cook like 3 steaks and probably eat two and a half, like not two and a half of them. I'm sorry, like one and a half of them. I always eat the fatty part of the ribeye first and then
Yes.
save like the roast beef part for the next day
Right. The
and then
leaner
use
part.
the
The
leaner
tallow.
part for the next day. And then I'll use the tallow with that. I found some from US Wellness Meats. They have like little pemmican that is just beef and tallow, and that's it. I like those little sticks. I'll sometimes take two of those with me because that's 600 calories. Two of those little sticks. Carnivore bar with their little pemmican crispy, crunchety things. So those things are like crack. When I buy those things, I'll eat a whole box in like 3 days because they're so smooth and creamy.
Yeah.
It's like eating crunchy cake icing minus the
Yeah. Yeah.
sugar. And I'm like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I can't buy these things. They're too good. So then I end up getting too many calories, I feel like. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting fat again. So it's like there is no, I have a hard time, and I don't mean fat like
Yeah.
fat, but I start to see a little less veins in the arms, and I'm like, oh, time to cut back on the extra snacks. And about a week later, I start to come back down a little bit. I know this is kind of off the topic, but I have to mention that my lady time has gotten a lot better doing this. It's a lot shorter. It comes when it's supposed to. It's not. I have no pain associated with it. I
Mm.
used to be almost bedridden my whole entire life up until doing the carnivore, like no cramping. It is still very heavy, but it's a lot shorter in duration. That was a huge thing for me with doing this, was that becoming a lot less painful, because it was almost debilitating. I don't get headaches unless I stare at my phone for too long. So many different things have really improved by doing this. I know that was off topic. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, it's on topic. As a fertility specialist, I think that's really important. Carnivore has immense benefits for reproduction for men and women. I believe that endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, adenomyosis, uterine fibroids, and just pelvic pain in general is caused by the damage that plants and a low fat diet does to our bodies.
Right.
And that's I think very important for people to know and hear from a young woman like yourself that has suffered.
Yeah. Well, I'm not that young. I just turned 46.
Well, but 67 is young, so 46
True.
is really young.
Yeah,
But
it's still
again,
really young.
but mindset, back to the mindset, is the critical component of health and wellness. So this idea that at least I've got my health, your health is not determined by the physical nature of your body, but by the mental nature of your body.
Mental, and then the internal state of the
Yes,
body, and then
right.
that kind of manifests to the outside of the body as well, whether
You
it's your
see it.
skin not erupting, brighter eyes, happier moods. That the mood is like the mental part too, but even the physical body composition, and women and men have to remember, women have more body fat. And you and I personally talked about this on the phone one day a couple months ago. Women have more body fat than men, and they have it especially in certain areas. And back in the day, like, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, they embraced women that had more curves because they looked more fertile back then. So, and most men naturally gravitate to women that have more, especially in today's climate. They want, curves.
Right. So our move to try to slim down and be skinny is incorrect in my opinion. And I believe that the word, being fat is where it's supposed to be, but our definition of fat has sort of gone, changed so much, right? What
Right.
was once normal is now considered obese, which is probably the problem of our society and culture and all sorts of things. So
Right.
any particular lessons that you want to share that you've learned from helping clients and how others can gain improvement in their lives?
I honestly think one of the biggest lessons that I learned in order to help clients was when I had gained all that weight and became a lot less judgmental on other people for the way they physically looked, um, even if they were complaining about it, because I became more empathetic towards them with their own journey. Because when it took me 4 years to lose 20 pounds, um, and I was doing everything I possibly could with the diet, well, what I thought was right with the diet, and doing it all naturally and excessive exercising and everything, I still had a hard time with it. It allowed me to be a lot more empathetic and not look at people that weren't in shape with any kind of a critical, um, judgmental, harsh thought process, even though they might not necessarily hear that directly from me. If they came to me to lose weight, if I knew who they were, let's say, and I knew their lifestyle, I wouldn't necessarily just automatically still think that they were necessarily lazy, because you don't live with somebody, so you don't see what they're struggling with all the time
Yeah. Yeah.
and what they are trying to do to fix and remedy the problem. And when I realized I was an addict myself and my addiction was actual sugar, I think an addict is an addict is an addict is an addict. It doesn't matter what you're addicted to. It could be gambling, sex, sugar, alcohol, recreational, well, I guess we could call recreational drugs, prescription drugs, I mean, because
Right.
prescriptions
Right.
are legal, people justify it. People can be addicted to anything. So it opened my eyes. I was able to understand and be a lot more empathetic with people on their journey and approach them in a different way and not seem so hypocritical and self-righteous, because I don't like to be self-righteous. As self-righteous, oh yes, I know what I'm doing. Oh, I've never been there. I've never done such a thing before. Okay, but I've done something else. It might not be that, but I've done something else. So, even with food, dieting, and everything else, losing all of that and being a lot more kind and compassionate with people is probably the biggest thing, because I've trained over 425 people. So
Wow.
I've trained a lot of people, every ethnic background that you could think of, men and women, young and old, to the middle aged, every goal and dream that you could possibly have, professional athletes, all different kinds of people that wanted to do bodybuilding competitions and stuff, all the spectrum. So I've learned all kinds of different things from people, and to be a lot nicer and kinder and gentler with them and not so critical of their choices, and how they're even trying to handle how they lose weight and stuff. I always come off preachy, and I'm very passionate. I talk with my hands a lot, you can tell, and it probably people people get a little taken aback by me, because I'm pretty, I got a presence about me, and I seem almost like I'm on attack mode sometimes, and I have to, I've learned and I'm learning to tone that down a little bit, but still being able to get my point across and try to educate them without making them feel stupid for thinking the way they do, and so on and so forth.
We all think stupid, I think, and maybe that's the point, is that actually none of it's really stupid. It's just that we're all pretty similar. We all have worries and fears and regrets and judgment, and some of us are able to sort of hide it, I think, a little bit better than others. But ultimately, we need to open up to those faults and then see the perfection so much that's already within all of us. Are there any questions that maybe I didn't ask, or you wanted to share? Thoughts and ideas that you want to share with our listeners?
I don't know. I think I hit on a whole bunch of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
'Cause, I don't stay on topic very easy. It's very, my brain is always all over the place, and I'm like, oh, I got to throw that in there. Oh, I can't forget to say this. Not really, I don't think, unless there's anything that you have that you want to ask me.
No, I've been really, really grateful, Tamar, that you've been here with us today to share your thoughts and ideas of health and wellness, and how ultimately all of us can take our lives to any place we want to go. And as faith, to me, again, like yourself, is critical in life. You have to see God in everyone and everything, and you have to eat the proper human diet, as our good friend Ken Berry likes to say, and as our friend Anthony Chafee and Sean Baker, they love resistance work, and that's critical in life. So again,
Yes.
how do people find your amazing energy and ideas?
My Instagram, which is just the little @ symbol, and then my name that is right here on this screen. I don't know if other people can see that. It's just Tamar Licalzi. And then I use Snapchat too. That's the only social media that I have. I don't have TikTok anymore. I got it completely off my phone. It's too invasive. I've learned some things about that I don't think I should have, but they should be on my phone, or anybody's phone for that matter. Facebook, I might do again. I don't know. I don't like Facebook, but Facebook and Instagram are owned by the same people, so
But
they kind of
but
like in the same position there.
and those that are interested in personal training and lifestyle coaching, they find you
Um,
on.
They could just use my Instagram, and then they can DM me. I look at the other messages that go into those other folders. I'll look to see if they're spammy or whatever. But every once in a while, I get somebody that says something to me, and they ask me a question, and I'm like, thank God I look at those about once a week. I go in there to see, because I have been able to help people and give them better ideas or encourage them and point them to doctors like you and the other doctors, the other carnivore doctors. And there's a few I didn't even mention. There's a lady doctor. I can't remember her name. She's an ophthalmologist, I believe. I think it's Wiedemann or something. She's a
Oh, Lisa
carnivore
Wiedemann.
doctor
Yes,
as well.
diet doctor. Yeah. She's
Yeah,
a carnivore doctor. Yeah, Lisa
yeah,
Wiedemann is amazing. Yes,
yeah.
yes,
She's really, I like her page too. Everybody's got their own like little specialty. So when I look at those things, I only really use those two social media platforms, and then people can write me on there, and I am pretty responsive. Um, I don't really do online coaching per se. I mean, I can write people workout routines and stuff like that, but I feel like that's kind of cookie cutter.
You love
So
the personal approach,
I do
personal
like to deal
one-to-one
with
approach.
people one
Yeah,
on one. So if
cool.
they're around where I live, that's cool. And I don't mind just interacting with people and helping them and giving them some tips. And if they really follow my stuff, I give away enough free information anyway. They should just, people can kind of gather information. I post a lot with my clients working out too, with the exercises that I have them doing. So they can even look at my own page and be like, oh, that's a cool exercise. I've never thought about doing that. And then they can try it, So that's kind of how I like to just help and inspire people. But I mean, because I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, I don't have the certification. I just have my own life experience with eating and the carnivore. There's a fine line if you're not like a MD or whatever telling people how to eat without getting yourself in
But
trouble.
but we are so the one thing I've learned about health and wellness today is social media is actually the new social medicine. We learn from people like yourself. We learn from those that don't have a degree in medicine or don't have a degree in nutrition, because ultimately I think we're in our mess because of those degrees.
A
And
lot of them, yeah.
unfortunately, that's it, right? It's all a myth, right? It's the like your doctor that you went to and said, you didn't know what you're talking about, and then ultimately he even confessed you were right.
Right.
And I think so much of medicine today is because of access online for all the information. We might listen to some people like they think, we're crazy, or we think they're crazy, or we're all a little crazy in some way or another. But ultimately, we're learning for ourselves to be the number one experiment you. And that's I found carnivore. I've been doing weights for since I was about 16, and I still do them. Not too heavy. I do light stuff, and I get on my bike and do that. But I think you have to move, be creative, get out there and do something, and make
Hmm.
some mistakes.
Yes. Yeah. Mistakes. That's how we learn. If we were
Yes,
perfect, life
yes,
would be
yes.
boring if we were perfect.
Well, I always say we'd probably be done, right? If when we hit the perfect button, it's like, okay, you're done. Next line.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, a pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
We look
Kiltz.
forward to continue to following what you're doing and sharing and inspiring so many other people.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And
Thank
I
you.
appreciate everything that you do.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yes, yes. All right.
it.
Take care. All right. That was really a wonderful podcast. And thanks for joining. And don't forget to check out drkiltz.com and Kiltz's Mighty Tribe and the 30-day carnivore course, which we're still offering. The special included is Kiltz's Keto is Carnivore and the daily inspirations, digital format. So again, thank you for being here. Dr. Rob Kiltz. Blessed. Be well. God bless.